This is Changing Channels with Larry Walsh, the Channelnomics podcast that connects you with channel chiefs, thought leaders, and executives about what it takes to get the next generation of tech to market. Here's your host, Larry Walsh, the CEO and Chief Analyst of Channelnomics.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Changing Channels. I'm of course your host, Larry Walsh. And if you're like me, you've heard this term many times over in many places, everything as a service. It is the seemingly unstoppable trend of our industry. Everyone seems to want to become a services-based company and generate revenue on a recurring basis. On the consuming side, though, on the customer side, this means that they're paying on what they consume or what they use. Now, for born in the cloud and cloud-based companies, this is not new, and it's pretty straightforward. This model is what they were built for. It is their model. But for legacy hardware companies, the transition is a bit trickier. Hardware companies that sell devices from desktop to the data center have been plotting transitions to break away from their traditional transactional models and put themselves squarely in the everything as a service column. Now, the transition for them isn't easy. In fact, it's a bit tricky. It takes a lot to convince partners and customers to stop hugging their servers and embrace this consumption-based model. One company that has been doing a pretty good job of it and moving steadily in the direction of consumption-based sales is Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, better known as HPE. In 2017, HPE announced GreenLake. Now, GreenLake is their platform and their model for selling hardware as a service. Partners sell and customers consume based on what they use. And it's a big difference from the way that they've traditionally bought hardware in a one-time transaction model. HPE has set its sight on becoming 100% services-based revenue in the not-so-distant future. By 2024, they say that they're going to have the majority of their revenue coming from services, and they're well on their way to doing it. Now, this has not been an easy transition for HPE. It's been years in the making. They've done a lot to transition their internal sales teams. They've done a lot to help partners and adopt and capitalize on this model. And they're doing a lot to get the customers to see the value that comes with it. So we thought it'd be a good idea to have one of their chief advocates come on and talk about this. And when I say it's a good idea is because there are a lot of hardware companies that are trying to go through this process, and HPE is steadily making progress towards this goal. So we've asked Paul Hunter, the Managing Director of North America, to join us today to talk about what HPE has done over the past few years with GreenLake and their as-a-service model, the lessons they've learned along the way, and the opportunities now and in the future for partners and customers through the services-based and consumption-based model. So with that, welcome to Changing Channels, Paul Hunter.
Hi, Larry. Nice to be with you.
It's great to have you, my friend. It's been a while since we've seen each other. And it's been a while since HPE announced GreenLake and started this transition to the as-a-service model. So for those that don't know, because I want to frame this up properly, is that the as-a-service and the consumption-based model or recurring products and services sold on recurring revenue is pretty well known. But GreenLake is not as well known, or dare I say, not as well understood. So can you take a minute, just tell us a little bit about GreenLake and how does it work?
Yeah, so we launched GreenLake. First of all, we've been in the market for a long, long time. The first instantiation of what we call GreenLake was what we used to call flex capacity, and that offer is over 10 years old now. And but the one that really started to take root with partners was kind of the third version of that offer, and we launched it in 2018. I remember we had a partner event at our European Discover, which was in Madrid, and I stood up and presented the new offer and was expecting to be greeted with adulation, but it wasn't quite that way, because as you know, partners always are a little nervous about new offerings from companies because they've tried 1,000 things and often they don't work. So yeah, no, it's 4 years old, 4 or 5 years old. It's essentially our cloud services offer. The way that it works is essentially you buy a service from a partner. You're a customer, you buy a service from a partner. It could be storage, it could be compute, it could be an application running on a compute. The partner meters the usage of whatever it is the customer is buying. customer pays for what they use. We can the partner can either run it in the customer's data center, they can run it on a colo provider, or they can run it in their own as a service provider. So think of it as a hybrid cloud offer that is sold by a partner to a customer, and it can be hosted or run by the customer, the partner, or us. They kind of all those options are available.
So is it fair to say that for those customers that still want to hug their server, they can pick up a server and take it wherever they want to, but still use it on a consumption-based model?
Yes, they can do that. Yes, so a customer that wants to go to sleep holding and hugging their server, they can do that, and they can pay for what they use within essentially an infrastructure as a service offer, a GreenLake offer. And yeah, they can run it in their data center. They can run it themselves, and they're paying for what they use rather than buying it outright. So yeah, both options are available. That's kind of the most basic version of the A service.
Yeah. But so do you describe it though as that everything is a service model, or do you think it's different from that? Because traditionally what we would call this is some version of hardware as a service.
Yeah, well, it's more than hardware as a service, because now we have what we call an edge to cloud platform. So we have a cloud native management platform. It enables you to run and deploy instances of storage, of compute, of network. It has the ability to determine what the billing looks like, so you can kind of take a view on what the cost of running a workload in public cloud is like, what the view on running it on premise looks like. There's some degree of traceability on where your data is, so and observability. So we've been working on innovating and putting our R&D dollars into that platform for the best part of 5 years now, and it's really sort of coming to fruition, because we've got customers that are on the edge cloud platform. They're buying block as a service, and they're using our cloud native management platform. So it's more than just infrastructure as a service. So on top of that, we also have applications. Some of it's our IP, some of it is third party or IP. So SAP would be an example of that. Oracle would be an example of that. We will manage the SAP instance. The partner manages the SAP instance, and we just had a terrific win with a partner out of Columbus, and they're managing a complete renewal of an SAP environment, and they're doing it on a metered basis. So that would be an instance where it's third party IP. The other would be it's got some of our IP in it. So our private cloud edition, enterprise edition, we've got a business edition. So we've got our own software now through acquisitions over the last 3 or 4 years. So that's that's an offering where a customer can use a piece of compute, and they can provision it for bare metal, for containers, or for virtualization, and we're starting to sell that and establishing a footprint with it. So it's multiple layers to the offer.
Yeah, I've jokingly said that customers didn't ask for the recurring revenue model to pay in perpetuity. They did want, and when we told them that we could give them the access anytime, anywhere, anytime, they really liked that idea. The entire thing of continuing to pay is not one of the things that they actually asked for. Now, I know that like I said, I jokingly said that we invented this as the industry because we wanted to make more money. Good for us. What's the appeal to the customer and the partner in this model? What is it that actually makes this sticky to them or attractive to them?
Yeah. So when you turn back the clock and think, why is it that sort of public cloud took off exponentially? And I mean, I think that originally there were probably 2 or 3 dimensions to it. The first was the speed. forget an IT project and creating a business case, doing a pilot, doing some testing, ordering some infrastructure, getting it delivered, negotiating it. In 6 months down the line, you've got something that you are testing. You've got some service that's available immediately. So the speed was a massive transformation in customers' experience. They kind of like being able to pay for what they use, and I think probably 10, 15 years ago, economics was a part of the proposition. I think that has changed fairly considerably now in the recently, so that it's now the economics depend on what you're running and what the workload looks like. So I think those were the two really big factors in customers liking cloud. What has lent itself to hybrid cloud are probably two things. One is all of that sounds great as long as all your data is somewhere in a data center being managed somewhere. But it's not easy to refactor applications. So that is a lot of work. There's a lot of expense. There's a lot of time. And you don't necessarily get the benefits associated with moving your application. So that's probably the first thing that has changed, or customers have more knowledge of. Second is it takes account of where your data is. And a lot of data are being generated in ships, in stores, in airports, in planes, in people. And it doesn't always make a whole lot of sense to take that data somewhere else, do some analysis into it, and then return it to its point of origination. So taking account of data, taking account of where data is, but then being able to give a customer that speed to access of service is a really big deal. And then the other thing that customers enjoy is they don't have to buy all the capacity they need for the next year or year and a half. They can buy the capacity they need for the next 2-3 months, and then they use what they need, and as they need more, we deliver more. So it doesn't tie up as much capital in assets that aren't being utilized.
From the early days of public clouds, that was one of the promises: agility, scalability, flexibility, that you could scale up or you could scale down if you needed to. But the market quickly moved more towards, well, let's lock you in to certain levels of capacity. Let's lock you into a certain cycle of payments, not necessarily based on that, that level of friendly consumption base that you're describing. Is this a part of an evolution, you think? Is that HPE is leaning into, only pay for what you need versus the let's get you into these larger blocks of commitments?
Well, the relationship between commitment and flexibility, and you've got this triumvirate of commitment, variability, and economics. And what we do is give the customer the options. I mean, in a very similar way to public cloud provider. If you want the ultimate flexibility, then likely it's going to cost more. And if you're totally 100% committed, then the cost is less. And we kind of have a similar optionality. So it depends what a customer wants. It depends what the performance of the attributes of the workload look like. And so we're happy to do what the customer thinks is right. But that's kind of, we sort of think of that as made to measure hybrid cloud. We also offer what are now sort of we would consider more standardized off the peg services. So block as a service would be a great example. The customer determines what level of availability they want, what level of performance they want, and then we charge them on the basis for which they use it. The partner charges them for the basis which they use it, but they don't have all the optionality, and that's kind of probably increasingly where we're seeing broader scale partner adoption, because the made to measure hybrid cloud offer, which is the bulk of our business to date, is complicated. There's a lot of complexity tied up in it. There's complexity tied up in the architecting, the solutioning, the customer engagement, the contractual terms, and as much as we look to simplify, it's still a complex and demanding pursuit for partners and for ourselves, and so that isn't the right model for all customers. We need a far simpler rinse and repeat approach, which is easier for partners to sell, solution, and operate.
Right. You've talked about this. I've seen you quoted in a few articles talking about the opportunity that's ahead. It's more than just ahead. You talk about the opportunities that are here today. In fact, recently and within the past few months, you've actually increased incentives to partners to get them to become more engaged, or give them more of a reason to lean into the GreenLake model. What is it that's actually driving this growth and demand? Because I'm also seeing from your peers in HPE talking about the double-digit growth that you're seeing and you're aiming for to continue this, to get to this nirvana of majority of your revenue from services. Where's that demand? Where's this opportunity coming from?
Yeah, so I think there are probably two origins of it. One is, as you asked in the previous question, the customer proposition is a good one. Not having to over provision, being able to get speed to service quickly, and provide the services that the line of business needs quickly. So the proposition is a good one, and one that essentially has been sold through by the hyperscalers, which is the value from adopting cloud. The value to a partner is, and the value to HPE is, it completely transforms a customer relationship into a client relationship. For a partner, it means that they are not competing every 3 years for the same replacement and modernization with another partner. So there's just a depth to the stickiness and the frequency of the relationship that's completely transformed. Second is that you're building an intimacy with the customer that you don't have with kind of what I would describe as a traditional model. So you're building up intelligence that really enables you to find and land other opportunities. And then the third thing is these hybrid cloud instances, they are growing quite quickly and quite effortlessly. So once you've landed the first environment, there generally we're seeing the usage of the workload increase quite quickly, and then we are adding additional services on top. So the kind of cross-sell and upsell opportunity is much greater for partners. And if that were not enough, we're seeing it for many partners who are looking to grow their managed services business. It's a really good opportunity to sort of build out a service catalog, and a lot of partners are changing their valuations, as from moving from purveyors of infrastructures to purveyors of services. So this helps them do that as well.
We've also been noticing that there are a number of enterprises, a lot of even mid-market companies, that are moving away from the public cloud providers back into more on-prem or hybrid. In fact, IDC last year reported that 71% of enterprises are repatriating their workloads from public clouds into something that's more akin to something like GreenLake. Are you seeing that effect? Because we're hearing it from other vendors as well, is that they're seeing more co-location, they're seeing more on-prem private cloud development. Is that part of the growth equation and part of the opportunity that you're seeing as well?
Yeah, we're seeing in both directions. Customers continue. It depends where their customers are on the adoption and maturity of their cloud experience. Some are still in the very early stages and are late to cloud and are moving applications and workloads into public cloud. Others are more mature and have got a broader breadth of experience, are moving some back. And really the ones that were kind of at the vanguard of the cloud adoption 10 years ago are now in a position where there isn't one answer. It depends what the attributes of the workload are as to where you put it and how you use it, whether it's on-prem, in colo, in being managed by someone else, or in a hyperscaler. So what we're actually seeing is a increased propensity for mixed environments. Customers have got a bit of, depending on their size, have got a bit of something. But what is new is we're seeing born in the cloud companies, companies that grew up with their workloads entirely in off-premise, cloud native, start to establish on-premise and own their own infrastructure. Mostly when that happens, the partner is managing, or we are managing the service provision, and they don't want to own their own data center, but they want to own their infrastructure and they want to have access to their own data. So that is relatively new. I'd say we've been seeing that actively happening in the past 6 to 18 months.
This hasn't been a quick journey. I mean, I'm sure that, once you set your sights on something, this seems like it's a great idea. I know members of your executive team, and I can say that I like most executive teams, they want things to go faster, not go apace.
Yeah.
But this has been a process for you. I want to start by the internal side of this, because I've heard you and seen you talk about this, is that you had to go through a process of reorienting your people around this idea. What was that process like? What did it take? And I'll preface this, not to lead the witness, as they'd say. We hear this from others, is making that transition internally is harder than it is to make the transition externally. So what was it like for HPE?
Yeah, I would characterize it that we have been reconfiguring our sales teams for the past 5 years. We need more industry expertise. We need more technical expertise. That technical expertise needs to be deeper. You're replenishing or modernizing infrastructure every 3 to 4 years to having a service-led sale. You are looking to connect what we do and turn it into tangible business benefit. That's very different from how we used to compete and how we used to, sell to customers. And so we are, I would say we're probably 5 years into that journey, and it continues, because whilst it's cloud now, and I think we're getting pretty proficient at cloud, it's now AI. I mean, it's, and expecting I would describe it as a client specialist sales team to start talking to machine learning engineers. I mean, good luck with that. There may be a few people that have got that capability, but it's, you get out of your depth very, very quickly. So we continue to be on that path. And I wouldn't say we are certainly not at the destination. And once that we get to the destination, there'll be something else. So we've been reconfiguring the team for a while. As hard as it is with our own sales organization, it's even harder with partners, because they don't work for you. They've got options. And so they have to very deliberately opt in to going on the same journey. And it's just so hard for them as it is for us. And so there might be an easier path to retire margin or quota, or make improvements to their P&L, which aren't as hard. So that, I think, is also part of what we see. Some partners are, they really see the benefit. They get the strategic intent. They get the opportunity. They understand how hard it's going to be, and they're tenacious about it. But you need a lot of fortitude to go on this and make it through the other side to start seeing the benefits. So it's for sure it's taken a lot longer than we anticipated. I think I was quite naive about how difficult it was going to be to get partners on the journey with us.
What did you have to do to get the partners on the journey? Because HPE not only speaks about enabling partners, but making partners more competent and independent so that they can act and capitalize on the add-on opportunities that come with this consumption-based model, this hybrid model. What changes that you had to make to your program and your engagement with partners to get them to not only buy in, but to buy into the future vision?
Yeah, so programmatically, it's a bigger profit opportunity for partners. Um, it's a path to managed services growth, which is more beneficial for valuation. And we, in this instance, we financially incent the cloud services offer in far more richly than we do the traditional offer. So partners make more money, but it's not enough to make more money if the effort to get there is so great that it's difficult to recoup the money. And so we try to make that as easy as possible. So we have dedicated sales specialists that will go and essentially help a partner to retire their first opportunity. You kind of think of it as someone, we get someone has a sidecar to the motorcyclist, and once we've done the first, then we don't get engaged as early on the second and the third and the fourth, and by the fifth, we would say, generally the partner becomes pretty self-reliant. They need some help depending on this particular opportunity and the particular workload that might be involved, but they can be pretty independent. So help with additional expertise, help with the program and profitability. We help with a co-investment and business plans. So we will, essentially we'll sign up to a joint business plan over 12 to 36 months. We'll prime the pump, we'll make the initial investment, and then based on hitting additional targets along the way, we will continue to invest, but we also expect partners to co-invest. And then there's the content around how do we educate the partners on what cloud conversation looks like, what the proposition looks like, how to anticipate the obstacles that come up. I mean, in the first year, we were making a lot of mistakes, and consequently, we've learned from that, and we help partners not repeat the same mistakes we made.
Go back to 2017 and look at what you did then. What would you change at the beginning of this transition that based on things that you know now? What would you do differently?
I'd be more selective with the partners that we look to work with in the first instance. And what I mean by selective is this isn't for everyone. You've got to find partners whose leadership are really committed to the journey because they're committed to that outcome. And if you don't have that, it can be too hard. The journey can be too hard. You've got to, for a partner, they've got to reconfigure their compensation. That alone, reconfiguring compensation is pretty painful. But they need to reconfigure their compensation. They've got to set different financial expectations with their owners. They've got to be prepared to give up the opportunity for a straightforward replacement for something that's going to take 6 to 9 months. And we would have been better served to focus on a small number of partners, make a breakthrough with them, and then look for repeatability. And that's not really how we approached it. We thought, let's approach the whole of our partner base, which is thousands of partners. So I would have been more selective about it.
Now, as I said in the introduction, we've mentioned this, is that HPE is aiming to make the majority of its revenue from the GreenLake or the consumption-based model by 2024. You eventually want to be 100% in that direction, is my understanding. And I've looked at, I'm not going to commit you to numbers, but I've looked at some of your numbers and I was like, you know what, they're going to make the 2024 objective, which is pretty good. But what's the future look like? What does that future of HPE look like in this consumption-based, this hybrid model? And what does that look like for the partners?
Yeah, so the future is we will release more and more standardized services. We'll have we'll sort of move our bespoke tailoring to made to measure, and we'll have a lot of off the peg services. And I think the off the peg services are going to be the ones where we get wide scale partner adoption. I think what we have now is we've got greater than selective partner adoption. We've got adoption such that partners are really contributing to the growth in our as a service business and our ARR. So new services is a big opportunity, and then we'll add, start adding expertise for industries. I think partners are starting to think about how do they build practices as well, particularly the ones that are sort of forward thinking, and customers need a lot of help. If you sort of just consider the frenzy that's going on in the market at the moment with artificial intelligence. I mean, it's fine for big customers who've got extensive resources and extensive expertise, but there are lots of customers that do not have access to that expertise or resources, and they need help. And partners have a significant part to play in really advising customers on how to benefit from these breakthroughs that are going to be made using large language models and fine tuning them and all the ISV partners that are available. So this is just adding another layer of complexity to already dynamic and changeable market.
The future has a lot of opportunity and a lot of uncertainty, and that's I think that the best we can say, it's going to look interesting. Paul, it's been great having you here, and it's been great having this conversation. I hope to get you back here again sometime soon.
Yeah, it'd be great to join you again, Larry. And as a lot of partners often tell me, where there is complexity and confusion, there is superb opportunity for partners.
There always is. Paul, great having you here, everyone. Paul Hunter, the Managing Director of North America at Hewlett Packard Enterprise.
Thanks, Larry.
Well, that's about all the time we have for this edition of Changing Channels. Again, I want to thank our guest, Paul Hunter, the Managing Director of North America at HPE. And I want to thank all of you for joining us again here in Changing Channels. We do this podcast for you to help you understand what's happening out in the world. And as we like to say, how technology is changing everything and how the channel is bringing technology to the consumers. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe and hit like and tell your friends about us. And also check out our other podcasts, In the Margin, as well as The Network Effect. Until next time, I'm Larry Walsh.
Thank you for joining Changing Channels with Larry Walsh, a production of Channelnomics. If you've enjoyed today's episode, hit the like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and share with your friends. For more information about Channelnomics services and insights, follow us on Twitter and YouTube, and check out our website at channelnomics.com. Channelnomics is a registered trademark of, and Changing Channels is copyright by 2112 Enterprises, LLC.